Intrigued? For thousands of years, one name has served as the ultimate shorthand for human hubris and divine rebellion. If you know the stories of the Tower of Babel or the Whore of Babylon, you know the legend of this city. But that infamous reputation is a caricature. It is a story written almost entirely by the city's enemies. Greek historians painted the capital as a den of decadent luxury, while biblical writers cast it as the mortal enemy of God. If we strip away the ancient propaganda, we find a much more compelling reality. This is the historical account of a minor, dusty settlement that conquered the ancient world through sheer, impossible resilience. We are looking at the banks of the Euphrates River, where the geography itself laid the groundwork for future power. Around 1894 BC, Babylon was a minor crossroads town, caught squarely between the established cultures of Sumer in the south and Akkad in the north. Mesopotamia at this time was completely fractured. Dozens of independent city-states fiercely competed for every inch of farmland, every irrigation canal, and every trade route. In this tense climate, an Amorite leader named Sumu Abum seized control of the small town. He managed to secure its independence, keeping Babylon autonomous while allowing it to quietly grow its administrative muscle in the shadow of much larger warring empires. Surviving in this landscape required managing shared irrigation canals and trade routes with a precision their rivals lacked. By refining the administrative records and taxation systems of previous dynasties, the city's leaders turned their small territory into an indispensable hub of regional logistics. A century later, King Hammurabi inherited the throne. He realized early on that long-term dominance requires a stable economy at home before marching his armies outward. He spent years repairing the irrigation systems and organizing a centralized tax bureaucracy to bolster his authority. Here is the ultimate tool of centralized control, the Code of Hammurabi. Placing this stele in the capital brought populations under one standardized law. Look closely at the top. Hammurabi receives these laws from Marduk, actively intertwining state authority with divine will. The code divided society into a three-tiered hierarchy. At the top, the Awilim, noble landowners. In the middle, the Mushkanum, landless commoners. At the bottom, the Wardim, the enslaved. Your position on this pyramid dictated your legal reality, determining exactly your punishment. By organizing law, economy, and religion into a single visible mechanism, Hammurabi transformed a vulnerable town into an institutional powerhouse. He built a structural blueprint that outlasted his own bloodline. That structural strength was put to the test in 1595 BC. Hittite invaders swept down from the north, sacked the city, assassinated the last king of Hammurabi's line, and then abruptly left, leaving behind a smoking ruin and a massive power vacuum. Almost immediately, the Kassite mountain tribes descended into Mesopotamia to seize the devastated capital. But here is where Babylon's history takes a sharp turn. Instead of erasing what remained, the Kassite conquerors realized the absolute value of the system they had captured. They adopted the local Babylonian gods and ran the existing administration to legitimize their own rule. The bureaucracy and culture of Babylon operated as the city's primary defense mechanism. The city absorbed its attackers from the inside out, turning foreign raiders into Babylonian kings for the next 4 centuries. Fast forward to the 8th century BC. The brutally efficient Assyrian Empire dominated the Middle East, reducing Babylon to a heavily policed vassal state that constantly boiled over in revolt. In 689 BC, after yet another uprising, the Assyrian king Sennacherib decided to permanently solve the Babylon problem. He tore down the walls, slaughtered the residents, and deliberately diverted the waters of the Euphrates River directly over the ruins to wash away the city from memory. The plan backfired. Babylon was considered so deeply sacred that this physical destruction sent shockwaves of horror through the Assyrian Empire itself. Sennacherib's own successors spent decades frantically rebuilding Babylon's temples to appease the gods and quiet the unrest. Babylon survived ancient history's most literal cancellation attempt. You can physically wash away mud, brick, and stone, but you cannot wash away a city when its religious and psychological grip on the region is that absolute. From the ashes of Assyrian rule rose the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Reaching its peak under Nebuchadnezzar II, the city forcefully reclaimed its independence and kicked off the most massive urban construction project the ancient world had ever seen. To understand his strategy of urban intimidation, look at this detail from the Ishtar Gate. Nebuchadnezzar surrounded his capital with 7-meter-thick double walls, covering the main entrances in brilliant deep blue glazed bricks and golden reliefs of sacred lions and bulls. Towering 90 meters over the city center was the Etemenenki, an immense stepped ziggurat dedicated to Marduk. For foreign visitors staring up from the dusty streets, this colossal structure seemed to touch heaven itself, becoming the likely historical basis for the legendary Tower of Babel. To fund this golden age, Nebuchadnezzar launched aggressive military campaigns westward. This photograph shows the excavated ruins of ancient Jerusalem, where in 586 BC, Babylonian forces broke through a 2-year siege, leveling the city, destroying Solomon's temple, and dragging the Jewish elite back to Mesopotamia. From a military standpoint, it was a complete victory, but historically, it was a fatal error. By subjugating Jerusalem and forcing its scholars into captivity, Nebuchadnezzar guaranteed that his empire's victims would write Babylon into the Bible, cementing its legacy forever as the eternal enemy of God. For all its towering walls and violent resurrections, the empire's ultimate fall was remarkably quiet. In 539 BC, facing a demoralized military and a fractured leadership, the city of Babylon opened its gates to the Persian conqueror Cyrus the Great, surrendering without a single fight. 2 centuries later, Alexander the Great marched in. He was so awestruck by the city's grandeur that he immediately ordered its temples restored, planning to make Babylon the capital of his new global empire. But in 323 BC, he died in the city before the work could truly begin. The actual death blow came shortly after. The subsequent Seleucid dynasty simply built a brand new capital called Seleucia a few miles away. Over the next several decades, the bureaucrats packed up, the merchant caravans rerouted, and the administrative purpose of the city drained away. Babylon was not burned to the ground by divine wrath or shattered by an apocalyptic siege. Once it lost its bureaucratic utility, it simply sat empty, slowly melting back into the desert dust. Today, all that remains of the once great capital are scattered dirt mounds and weathered stone monuments, like this lion standing watch over the empty landscape. Yet the weight of the name Babylon is heavier now than it was 3,000 years ago. The city left the ancient world's first working model for a multi-ethnic state, held together by standardized law and religion. Its influence is found in those foundational blueprints for governance, structures so resilient that they permanently shaped the civilizations that rose in its wake.